What's the worst trauma you ever had as a child? When I was 6, my dad abandoned me, he abandoned the family. And prior to that, it wasn't good. But what if at 6 years old, I could make a decision in that moment that would define me being a champion for the rest of my life? I wasn't able to do that. But our guest today, Ryan Cass, at 6 years old, had the biggest trauma moment of his life and made a life-changing decision that day that has allowed him to win every single day of his adult life. Cannot wait for you to hear this powerful lesson. Let's rock. When we're young, our survival is completely dependent on our parents. If they don't care for us, literally, we'll die. As an infant or a toddler, we know this instinctively. And so our relationship with our parents is the most important thing in our entire life. This is why it hurts so much when a parent causes us harm or when one neglects us. Our challenge, because all of us have had some type of trauma with a big T or a small t at some point in our young lives, is to find the strength in the infinite power within us so we literally can win today. And that's exactly what my good friend Ryan Cass is teaching the world to do. Ryan is the host of the Win Today podcast. He's the leader of the Unshakeable Discipline mastermind group. And he's here today to show us how we can win too. Ryan, welcome to Good Mood Revolution.
Matt, what an honor. Man, I'm on Good Mood Revolution. Let's create some good moods today and good moods that will serve people for the rest of 2025. I'm a huge fan of everything that you've built and so glad to call you a brother and a friend, man. Let's do this.
So, man, I appreciate that. But, take us back there. So, what was going on? What was it like growing up in the situation you grew up in?
Yeah. So you being in the real estate world have probably seen many homes that on the outside look visually appealing. Maybe someone wants to sell it. And then you walk inside and the picture doesn't match the outside. The walls might be messed up. There might be wallpaper that's 3 decades outdated and nobody wants a part of that house. And going back to my childhood, the outside picture looked awesome in that we're growing up in Southern California, just north of Los Angeles. My dad ran an Outback Steakhouse franchise, grew up in the restaurant industry, and I could make a bloomin' onion when I was 5 years old before the restaurant opened. Played sports with my sister and would sneak out back from the restaurant to kids at school and got to be the cool Outback kid. And the reality is that the picture inside the house was completely different. I come up from a family with a long-standing trend of alcoholism and emotional and mental abuse. So a typical night would look like my dad coming home very late from the restaurant, drunk from partying with coworkers and making that a priority, which then led to very chaotic scenes ensuing at home, where from the earliest years that I can remember, between starting around 4 to 5 years old, I would stay up late, anxiously waiting for which dad was going to come home. Was it going to be drunk dad and I've got to look out for my mom and sister? Or was it going to be sober dad that I can run out of the room and be excited and come talk to about the Yankees game and if the Yankees won that night? Many of the time it was the former. And the earliest hat that I wore in my life was protector and defender. So on these nights that my dad would come home and I knew what was going to happen with him and my mom, I would be right in the mix and seeing everything, the nasty arguments, the name calling, the threats that the kids are going to be taken away and you're not going to be able to survive, telling that to my mom. And I grew up very upset and scared. And one particular night, my dad I knew which dad was coming home because the louder the car was coming in, the faster the car was coming in, and the louder the music was playing, typically meant that this was a night of partying. And my mom had been acting strange that day. And on this night, cars coming in hot, music is blaring, mom's acting strange. Something is about to go down. Dad comes home, goes upstairs. Here comes the typical yelling, but this was different. Then I hear a loud boom, and I go running from my room into my parents' room, and I see a big hole in the wall, and then my dad's fist had just gone through. And then I look over to my left, and I see my mom crying and yelling in the bathroom. And she had written in lipstick on the mirror, David, my dad, David loves Corey. My mom's name is Rosie. So I knew that she was upset about some other woman coming into play, but I wasn't exactly sure still what had happened. And next thing you know, my mom is grabbing a pill jar, attempting to douse a bunch of pills down, continuing to yell and scream. Fast forward, there's a knock at the door, and it's the police. And they're asking, what's going on in here? And I answered the door, and I'm shaking like a leaf, Matt. 6 years old, shaking like a leaf.
Wow. Just 6 years old. Like
6 years old.
Man, I'm so sorry that you had to go through this.
That night gave me the greatest gift that I've ever received in this life. And little 6-year-old Ryan made a promise to himself that I'm never going to carry this trend on with my future family whenever that day comes. I'm never going to put the people that I love through the things that I've seen here. And I'm going to chart a different course for my life, because what I know now is that when we look at life from the perspective of even the bad times give us good times and bad equals good, we will always have an abundance of gifts. And I'm so grateful for that night when I was a 6-year-old boy, because that's what's created pretty much everything that you see from me today.
Dude, man, what a powerful story. And what a powerful 6-year-old. Man, that's crazy that was the night that you decided that the family trauma stopped with you. And at such a young age. Like, man, that's really, really powerful at such a young age. Yeah. So now you know, we always hear this, your pain can be your purpose. Mm-hmm. Now your pain can also be your excuse. But I like this. You've taken the pain and you said, all right, this is my purpose. And, you know, my life will be different. I'm going to chart a new course. Mm-hmm. What does it mean now? Like, what are some of the distinctions on how we win today?
Distinctions on how we win today. So a few things. Winning today can come from great things that we plan and we're intentional about. And it can also come from things that don't go our way, and making the choice to extract the good from it. So winning today typically means that I've got my plan for today that I wrote out yesterday, because winning today really starts the day before. And we execute on that plan. The things that we can't predict are the police showing up at our house one night, or maybe the more common things that we can't predict, that maybe there's going to be a sudden layoff, or that the dog is going to be throwing up all night, or that the kids are going to be up screaming all night. But we still have the choice that we have the choice of, okay, we can look at it. Oh, this sucks. Now I'm going to allow myself to sulk and be somber, and maybe we'll win tomorrow. Or we can capitalize on that moment. Okay, this isn't going our way right now. What can we do, or what is this giving us that can make us better and help us grow or help somebody else grow? Therefore, I believe that winning is abundant, and we can always run up the scoreboard because we're not going to allow the distractions to win. We're not going to allow the unforeseen circumstances to win. And we can sit here and smile about the things that don't go our way, because if you're familiar with Ryan Holiday and his work, one of my favorite books is The Obstacle is the Way.
I love him. Yeah.
Meaning that even the things that don't go our way are going our way because we'll be made better from them. So I believe when you have that, it's tough to not win at something every single day.
Happiness isn't just a feeling, it's a skill. And it starts with 5 pillars: authentic relationships, thriving fitness, achieving goals, conquering bad moods, and then choosing good ones. I'll teach you how to master all 5 pillars in my one-on-one happiness coaching. Let's talk. Grab a free 30-minute happiness consultation on my calendar at mattoneil.com/coaching. But one of the things I'm most curious about is Unshakeable Discipline. This is the name of your mastermind group. I love the word unshakable. For me, I talk about unshakable confidence. I also love the word discipline. For me, I say discipline creates freedom. But what does this mean? Why does that phrase, unshakable discipline, why is that so powerful for you? And what does it mean?
Yeah, I'm going to go with what it means first, because what people sometimes hear when they hear the word discipline is a negative connotation, meaning discipline. In our earliest years, I remember discipline being when I was misbehaving and my mom would give me, and my mom's Colombian, a cocotazo, which is basically like a noogie with her ring. And
I like that word.
And that's what I remember discipline being, that, man, I hate discipline. This is the worst thing in the world. Or in wrestling, when we weren't doing well, discipline meant, okay, now we're going to go run until basically somebody is ready to throw up.
So it's a punishment, right? Discipline could be seen as punishment. Yeah, I can see that.
There's a lot of people don't have a great relationship with the word, but what I've found is that discipline really is the fuel for everything that we want to create in life. Our discipline fuels our habits. Our habits fuel our systems. Our systems fuel our goals. So how I've defined unshakable discipline, breaking it into 2 words, unshakable simply means always. Discipline means living life by your design. So unshakable discipline equals always living life by design. Living life by design probably means that you're committed to something bigger than you, whether it's your family, your community, you're in good physical standing, you've created some sort of financial freedom, or you're working towards that. You've built a life that is abundant in the things that are most important to you. That's discipline. Now, what gets in the way of that? Everything that we mentioned. What gets in the way of that? Maybe it's your upbringing. Maybe it is the puking dog in the middle of the night is now going to get in the way of training for the marathon. That's why we put the unshakable part in there, that no matter what happens, we're always going to live life by design. And what helped change the game for me were 2 things. One is that when I was 15 years old, I had made the decision that enough was enough. and I wasn't going to keep holding on to this thing that wasn't serving me. And I forgave my dad and
15.
put everything off to the side. I'll never forget. I had my learner's permit. I was driving with him, and I told him, I said, Dad, everything that's happened, I forgive you. And I don't want to keep living this life where I'm upset all the time, because I was destructive. I would break things. I would literally break things in the house. I would break pictures, everything. And when I look back, what was his typical response? Punching walls, breaking
Anger.
things.
Totally.
And it was still my choice.
Man.
It was still my choice.
Yeah, anger was my dad's go-to, and then I was super quick to anger too. I kind of thought it was genetic.
Yeah.
That he was quick to anger, and then I just got that angry gene.
That's the story I told myself too.
Yeah, right? Like, oh, he's got a short fuse. I got a short fuse. Nothing wrong with it. I can't change it. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
That's really the way I thought. You moved to forgiveness at such a young age, but I think it's powerful. So I want the person listening to catch this, because my relationship with my dad finally healed when I actually moved to forgiveness. And not the I forgive you, but you still sucked kind of forgiveness. But the I fully saw he was doing the best he could.
Yep.
And even though that best wasn't what anyone would call good, it was still the best he could do. And I saw him as someone who actually was trying to do the best he could do, even though it was painful for everyone around him. And I finally came to forgiveness, where I just was like, man, I like honestly see you wanted to love me. And he's like, I do love you. And I was like, and I finally heard it. So when I got to forgiveness is when that relationship transformed. For me, it was just in my 30s.
Yeah.
Not at 15. So if you're listening and there's a relationship that has been holding you down or holding you back, or that you haven't fully forgiven, Ryan is talking about a very powerful thing here is once we fully forgive, we can move on in a powerful way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And there was that. And as I started becoming interested in researching why people are the way they are, the renowned people, the Richard Bransons of the world, the Tony Robbinses of the world, and becoming familiar with their stories, there's a lot of pain behind why they do what they do, especially Tony Robbins. And I remember asking myself around age 18, if they could have overcome those things and now they're using it to do so much good in this world, why can't I?
Whoa. Like, that's freaking mind blowing, right?
And those were the two things for me, man.
That is so crazy. So I talk about this too with my kids. I'm like, have you ever noticed that every single Disney character has the loss of a parent or a broken home or is an orphan or whatever? Like, they all have a really difficult childhood, and then they're the prince or the princess or they are the hero. But the hero always has a difficult journey. What's an action that someone could take today to take charge of their story? To start to see that, all right, well, maybe I haven't had this unshakable discipline. Maybe I haven't been living by design. You had said earlier, you said, hey, you plan your day the night before. How does that look?
Maybe you're still holding on to something right now that has you out of alignment with the way that you want to be feeling. It has you out of alignment with creating a good mood. Ask this: what good can I extract from this? Or how has this shaped me in some way? Because that person listening, you probably do something differently based off of what took place. And maybe you just haven't asked yourself the reflection question to realize, oh, actually, this is the reason why I always check in with people every day and ask them, how are they really doing? Because I remember growing up when no one would check in on me. So
wow.
By taking that inventory, you can really extract the good. Now, here's what I would say helps create a good mood and a win every single day. So winning today, in my view, started yesterday. So by waking up, when I wake up in the morning, and what some people will be able to see on the video but can't see on audio behind me is my goal board. And every day I come downstairs and it's put right in front of me. Here's exactly what I'm going after in 2025 that aligns to my purpose. What's 1 to 3 things that I can do every day that align to that vision? And I write that out the day before. The number one motivator for humans, Matt, and this is from a Harvard Business Review study, is progress. Making progress on something that we set out for. So by taking action on something that I wrote down yesterday, which one of those things is actually to do a journal session, a deep journal session tonight. By taking action on that and crossing that off the list that was written down, I'm going to generate just as many endorphins from that as going on a run later this afternoon. And I believe this is one way that we can hack life and feel really good about ourselves, is by writing down what you want to create, building a plan off that every day, starting the night before, and taking action and building small wins into your day, even as simple as making the bed in the morning, laying out the workout clothes the day before. We can build systems that allow us to rack up the scoreboard 2, 3, 4, 5 to 0 before the day even gets started and before any distractions may be able to get in your way. And I absolutely love that we can, by doing something so simple, we can create this powerful engine that is going to make us feel amped up, smile, and excited because we simply got clear on what we want and took action on it.
Oh man, I do exactly what you're talking about. I just don't write it the night before. But I did read a book called Win Tomorrow Today, which this was their recommendation, was write down what winning tomorrow looks like and tonight. And then you're already waking up with your playbook. I just wake up really early. So I get up at 4:30 in the morning. And then at that time, I'm sitting and I'm letting whatever the thoughts are coming to me. I've got a journal process. I'm letting whatever's supposed to come to me that day show up. And then it goes on a little piece of paper. So this is my little piece of paper. Ooh. That piece of paper goes in my pocket and it goes to the gym with me. And I'm at the gym, and sometimes I'll be on the bike and I'll pull the paper out of my pocket and I'll kind of look through it again. And if there's anything I can do while I'm on the bike right there, I might send off an email or send off a text or whatever it is and start to make progress on these ideas that came to me that I would make progress on where I want to go. But I'm doing this in a very similar fashion to you. I've got my top life goals. I've got one for each of the 7 areas of life on a piece of paper that's in that journal. I unfold that. So I've got this inspiration of where's the big picture that I'm trying to go to. And then this inspiration of what could I do today? What's 1 to 3 priorities I could do today that would take me somewhere along this progress? I've been doing that for a decade, maybe more. And dude, this piece of paper has been in my pocket every single day for 10 years. It just says different things on it every day. What I didn't know is that created the more endorphins than going for a run. I did not know that. I think that is super cool. Ever feel anxious, upset, or maybe like something's missing? The problem is never your external circumstances. It's always your internal mood. In my best-selling book, Good Mood Revolution, Igniting the Power of Conscious Happiness, I teach you the exact methods to own your moods and control your best life. Go on Amazon today and get yourself a copy, because your best life can't wait. So it does start with creating a vision. So we need to create a vision. And, the person listening might say, I've got a vague idea of where I want to go. But Ryan, how can they create a vision so that they have the big vision like I have in my journal and like you've got on your goal board? What's a process to create a vision so they know where they're going so they can create these 3 things every day?
2 questions, because it all starts with being clear on what you want. And what we can do is, first off, ask yourself, what is important to you in life? And there's no one right answer here. For some people, it's going to be their marriage. It's going to be their fitness. It may be travel. It may be finances. For others, it may be their marriage. It might be the community. It might be the environment. Maybe they love the ecosystem and it's really important to be involved in environmental efforts. Awesome. What is most important to you? And think about everything that comes to mind. And then as you're looking at that on a piece of paper, identify the no more than 5 things. So I call this the rule of hand. No more than 5 things that really just are truly important. Now that we've got that cleared out, what does success look like in each of those buckets? What does success look like? What would have you say that if family is one of the most important things to you, that, man, if those things happened or if we're created, I would say that, man, I'm rock star with my family. Or,
so with me, relationships are my number one priority. Mm-hmm. And of course, I've got 4 children, I've got a wife, and those are the most important relationships, but friendships are really important. And my mom is really important to me. But when I think about that, I'm like, okay, winning this category of family looks like me developing my kids. Mm. Not in the way I want them to develop, but in the way they want to develop. Mm. So I started to track. And every morning when I have my journal, I ask myself, did I do something to develop one of my kids yesterday? Mm. Some days it's no. Some days, a couple days in a row, it's no. Totally okay. It's a win for me this week if I did 3 things to develop my kids the week before.
That's beautiful.
There hasn't been a week I haven't hit 3 things. Sometimes it's only been 3, but it usually ends up being 6, 7, 8. And it's because I'm tracking it. So then when yesterday I had the opportunity to drive my daughter and her 5 friends to cheerleading practice. And Katie always drives to cheerleading practice, but I was available to do it. I'm like, I want to do this. And she's like, well, you got to go pick up so-and-so from this house and so-and-so from this. I'm like, I'm in. Because I got to sit and watch my daughter practice cheerleading. And there was a moment she's on the mat yesterday and I see that she's starting to tear up. And I'm like, oh man. And she's 11, all her friends are there. And I also noticed one of her shoes is coming untied. And so I run out on the mat and I'm like, hey babe, your shoe's untied. Let me help you. And so she's able to turn away from her friends and I'm tying her shoe and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And she's like, oh man, so-and-so said something. And I'm like, hey, I just want you to know I'm watching and you look freaking amazing out here. Your skills are so good. Your legs are so straight. And I'm not kidding. This girl, she's incredible. She's able to do things. She's been standing on her hands since she was 3 years old. She has always been standing on her hands. She was meant to be a gymnast and a cheerleader. And I actually untied the other shoe just so I could spend some more time with her and help her get centered. And then give her a big hug. And I said, you got this. And she goes out and crushes it. And then I take everybody home and she's kind of on cloud 9. And I got them all milkshakes, for playing so hard. And when we get back to the house, she's like, Dad, thank you so much for coming out. Like that really helped me.
That's so amazing, Matt. And
this morning, I'm like, all right, did I develop a child yesterday? Yes. But I think that if I didn't have this as a checklist, and you could say this is robotic, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just a way that keeps what's actually really, really important to me in developing my kids as something that I would put extra effort into and say yes to, where maybe if that wasn't a checklist and she had that cheerleading practice and it was picking up all these kids that I didn't know where they lived and all this other stuff, I would have been like, oh, you got this. I'll just take care of dinner with the other ones. But it wasn't. I seized the opportunity because I'm like accountable to this journal. Friendships are one of my pillars. Mm-hmm. Again, I think relationships are one of the key. I think relationships are the number one thing of happiness. Perhaps our relationship with God, you can put that into this. Maybe it's above it, maybe it's with it. But our relationship with our Creator and our relationships with others, this is the spice of happiness. And man, you showed up for my book launch. You showed up for my happiness talk. And I asked you before we started, I'm like, man, that took a lot of energy for you to show up to these things. So you've taken friendships and you've said this, when it's important to my friend, I'm going to be there for them. So how did you develop that? And how do you make sure that you show up for people that matter to you?
Simply put, I want to be the who for somebody that I would love to have in my life. Meaning that if, let's say I was launching a book, man, Matt, I would hope that you're there.
I'm there with bells on, man.
In the
and you are
row,
going to write a book.
And because I'm going to serve you in the way that I wish that people in my life would serve me, because I love you and I care about you and I know it's important to you. Therefore it's important to me. And even if I don't know a thing about it, maybe all I can do is just be a face in the crowd and let you know, hey man, I've got you. And what formed that, what I really give credit to, who I give credit to most there is my mom, in that she always taught us to love your friends, love your neighbors, and simply be a resourceful person. And regardless of what you look like, what you believe in, what you're preaching, I'm going to show up with love and respect. And that was something that I've carried on into my life, and it's now evolved into just how I show up for people like you and my friends. And again, people that I admire and respect and want nothing but the best for.
Man, it is really, really cool. And we're in an age when people are showing up physically less than ever. Mm-hmm. The happiness science shows us that the more that we have real face-to-face human connection and the more that we actually show up for people, the happier we are. So yes, it takes energy, but you're actually living it. And because of that, you're winning on a happiness scale as well. So you're now 184 episodes into Win Today, this one of the top global podcasts in the world. And you've had all these amazing conversations with incredible people. What are the common threads? If you could say, hey, there are 3 common threads that all these successful people you've gotten to interview, what would you say are a couple common threads that help people win today from all these experts?
It's been such an amazing experience to interview such amazing thought leaders. And I look forward to you being on that episode list, by the way, Matt.
Oh, cool. I'd love it.
The common threads that I see are that these folks are able to extract the good in anything. Therefore, they don't allow themselves to be weighed down by what we may perceive as bad or negative. They always turn it into something useful. They are very clear on what they want, and they are givers. They give their knowledge back. They give their time back. They help other people win, and they share their gifts. And those are the 3 that stand out immediately, time and time again.
So extract the good. That is exactly what we started this episode with. Clear on what they want. We spent time on being clear on what we want. You had some very powerful questions about how we can define what this looks like, what our ideal life can look like, and then coming up with 3 different things, 1 to 3 things I could do to put me on the path to those things every single day. And then giving back, helping, and sharing. So that's the piece that you do with your podcast. What is something that the listener could take away? Let's say they feel like, man, I felt like such an imposter when I started my podcast. I'm like, sure, I own a real estate company and I've helped a lot of people be successful in real estate, and I've done a ton of mindset stuff. But at the end of the day, who am I to have a podcast on happiness? I'm not out there, like being in psychology or whatever all these different people have. And so I had all this imposter syndrome that maybe I wasn't worthy of giving back. And I think that holds a lot of people back. So the person listening is saying, yeah, who am I to give back? I don't have it all figured out. How can they start to give back and serve?
I'm going to start with encouragement first, is that the person that's asking that question is, and maybe they're looking at somebody, maybe it's me, maybe it's somebody, probably someone way the heck bigger than me. that person, myself included, is also asking that same question from time to time, even having done this for years now. And the fact that you ask that question, here's the second piece of encouragement, means that you care and that you possess a strong sense of humility. At least that's the way that I've always looked at it. The fact that imposter syndrome, to me, I reframe it as it's a reminder of it. Hey, you possess some humility. So for the person that might be asking that question, I wish that serves as encouragement. And now here's encouragement to take action, for you to believe that you can talk about giving back. Find one person that you can help today, this week, this month, this year. Give back to one person. The way that we make a difference in this world, change in the world, starts by helping one person, by releasing one podcast episode, by asking one person, how are they actually doing, and caring about the answer, because then you don't know what that one person may do. That one person may go help 5. Those 5 may go help 10. And one thing we'll never know about life, we'll never know the true impact of our actions. Because I can tell you this, Matt, even the people that listen to this episode or have listened to many of your podcasts and my podcasts, they might not always give us the feedback of how we impacted them. But by us continuing to show up and push past the voices and maybe the imposter syndrome, we're helping so many lives. So for the person asking the question, take the action, start with one. You'll end up helping far more than one. Just take the action and push the voice aside.
Woo! Dude, so powerful, man. Well, you've got just an incredible podcast. You're one of the most inspiring guys I've ever met. Y'all, you need to check out the Win Today podcast with Ryan Cass. Ryan, if somebody wants to be part of your Unshakable Discipline mastermind group, or if they want to get more involved in your world, how do they get in touch with you?
They can go to Unshakeable Discipline. That's unshake as in milkshake, unshakeablediscipline.com. And I'm most active on LinkedIn at Ryan Cass, and then the Win Today podcast or ryancass.com also links to my personal website.
Man, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, bro. I really appreciate you.
Love it, Matt. Thank you so much, and wishing that this created at least one good mood from a listener today.
Hey, it did, because I feel amazing right now.
Well, there we go.
I hope you guys do too. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week.